Back to Mik'd Up. We are excited to have this next conversation with our next guest. Chris Branch, staff writer from The Athletic, currently resides in New Orleans. He has a pulse of the city. He has a pulse of the Saints. He hopefully
has the pulse of Tom Brady.
Hopefully can give us a little bit of hope and some good news about what the future holds. I don't want to ask too much about the playoffs because it's a very slim chance, but we'll have those conversations. We'll have those questions asked. Chris, man, thank you for joining the show. Excited to have you on the show, and I'm hoping that you have a lot of positive news for us.
I don't know if I have a lot of positive news, but it is fun to think about. And, thank you guys for having me on. This is pretty cool. Good to be with y'all. Yeah, what a rumor, right?
I mean, I hope it's more than a rumor. I hope it's, where there's smoke, there's fire. I think the Sean Payton thing has been talked about for a while, right? And I think earlier in the season it was, hey, what would happen if Sean decides to come back? Because the Saints he's still under contract with New Orleans. And that was kind of like an idea, and that was fun to think about. And then he came out and kind of stirred the pot a little bit, saying that the Saints would be number one on his list. The article came out about him. This is the destination that he wants to be. And then all of a sudden this Tom Brady stuff happens, and now they're linked together again for the second time. What are some of the rumors that you're hearing, and are these moving from the rumor mill to, oh, this shit could be kind of real?
I think it's way too early to say this shit could be real, sadly. But here's the thing to take away from this is that the Saints will benefit from this no matter what happens. If Sean Payton's saying the Saints are my number one spot, then any other team that wants him is going to up that offer. And the Saints, as we all know, need draft assets. That top 10 pick that could be their top 15 if they don't make the playoffs belongs to the Eagles in a trade last year. So the Saints desperately need this draft capital. So if you're another team and you really want Sean Payton and he's like, maybe I want to stay in New Orleans actually, and New Orleans is like, yeah, maybe I'll keep him. Maybe we'll put 2 first-round picks in that trade with New Orleans instead of 1, or a better player, So I think it's a win-win if you're a Saints fan because, A, if that's true, which I am going to cast a lot of doubt because it's so early that this came out. I mean, the Bucs are going to probably make the playoffs. The Saints might make the playoffs. Who knows? But I just think it's a little too early in the news cycle for this to actually come to fruition. Now, of course, you could record this and put me on freezing cold takes.
Freezing cold takes.
No way.
Takes exposed.
But I'm just saying, it feels a little too early. It feels a little fishy. I do think it's real that Sean would want to come back, though. If you look around the landscape, I don't know what other situation he'd want to go to. I mean, Denver's open. I don't know if any coach wants to touch that is experienced and knows
I
the
think
game.
Russell Wilson's pushing everybody away from them.
I mean, and they owe the whole franchise to Russell Wilson right now. I don't even know how you get out of that besides paying him $200 million to go away, which I don't think anybody can do that no matter how rich they are. So, I mean, I think it's a possibility. They were linked before. Clearly, they have a good relationship. And clearly, the best quarterback to ever play the game values Sean Payton's intellect and coaching. So, never say never. I'm going to wait and see what happens. I think it would be more likely that Payton comes back, though.
Yeah, and
I could see that.
I agree because, the 2 other teams that people were talking about Sean leaving the Saints are going to were obviously Dallas. That's been the rumor everywhere. He lives in Dallas. He coached under Dallas. There's a lot of history with him in Dallas. They're not going to get rid of McCarthy. They're one of the best teams in the NFC. They're not going anywhere. He's going to be there. That job's not going to be open. And the other job was in LA, and that job obviously is not going anywhere because they're going to make the playoffs, and that job is safe. So the only he talked about being comfortable and having the autonomy to do what he wants to do and bring the guys in that he wants to bring in. The really only other team that he's comfortable with is New Orleans. So, I said it 3.5 months ago. Now, my prediction 3.5 months ago was Sean's going to come back out of retirement and he's going to sign Lamar Jackson in free agency. That was what I said. And obviously that's still far-fetched, but the fact that he has...
It still can happen.
It 100% because he's not coming back without a quarterback. Correct? Like if he's going to come back, it's going to be, hey, I'm going to bring my guy in. We're going to do our things. We're going to assemble the staff. Is that kind of what you're hearing? Like he kind of has in mind of who he wants or what he wants to bring in, or is that just, obvious?
I'm sure he does. Sean is cagey. I'm not going to profess to know what his mind thinks, but here's the thing. If you look at the Saints right now, especially over the last few weeks, it's so tempting to say if they had a quarterback, man. I mean, how many football games this year have they been in where they had a one-score lead late and it crumbled, and they had a chance to go up 2 scores? I mean, Sean Payton, if he's looking at it, and I don't think this is true, but he could look at this team and says, this could be a 10 or 11 win team if I'm the coach and I have a better quarterback who wants to be with me. So you could talk yourself into that if you're Sean Payton and saying, why don't I just come back here for a last
Well, look what he did last year. Well, with no quarterback and no wide receivers, they went 9-8. Like a way worse team on paper last year, and they had a winning record.
And clearly, free agent quarterbacks are going to want to play for Payton. I mean, take Tom Brady off the table. Anybody who's available is probably going to put New Orleans at the top of their list of where they want to go. I mean, this is not going to be fun, but if you want a super realistic option that isn't this nuclear thing, it's Sean Payton comes back, trades for Derek Carr, and we roll with Derek Carr.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I know what you're saying. I get it. I'm just saying he's clearly available. You saw he got benched, and the reason he's getting benched is because they don't want him hurt for when they trade him. They want to move on, whatever.
Are they going to be able to trade him, though? Because he's got a lot. He's got, what, $40-50 million attached to him?
They'll have to eat some of that.
They will. He's right. They'll eat some of that because they want to move on. So they're in a bad spot with him contractually, negotiation-wise. And Sean Payton thought that he could make Taysom Hill into a starting quarterback in the NFL. Sean Payton is a QB whisperer. He probably thinks that he could do something with Derek Carr.
Well, he likes those BYU guys. What about going and get Zach Wilson to work behind Tom Brady for the year?
These are all terrible.
I'm just joking.
Options.
I'm joking.
If y'all bring up the 2 names again, I'm walking out.
I'm joking.
I
do not want that.
Oh no.
We can't pretend that Zach Wilson is on the same plane as Derek Carr. Don't say that.
You're right. I was just joking.
I would take Derek Carr. I would take Derek Carr every day over Zach Wilson.
Oh yeah. I mean, 100%.
Who would you take, Baker Mayfield or Zach Wilson?
Baker Mayfield, 1,000%.
I would too. I mean,
really?
He just
Jared's not a Baker Mayfield fan.
Ugh.
I'm not either, but
He's balling right now.
They both make me want to throw up in my shoe.
You put me in a corner there. I mean, Jesus.
That's bad.
Yeah,
that's bad options.
You put me in a corner there, I'm staying in the corner.
I wanted to ask I think you mentioned something that was kind of interesting in terms of it may be early for what Sean Payton is doing and how the story is kind of matriculated out into the ether. But is this something that he is actually doing to try to help the Saints a little bit in terms of trying to get more draft capital, even if it's not like him coming to the Saints, but if him just feigning interest in the Saints, like you said, brings in the possibility of, well, now you have to offer more.
You're right. I don't think it is very on purpose that Sean, and I'm not going to attribute this to him, but that news leaked out that Sean had the Saints as number 1. I mean, this has been matriculating for a while. That's not an accident. I can just tell you that reading tea leaves and knowing how the game goes. So if that's coming from Sean, and it seems like it is, then it's either helping the Saints or helping himself. I mean, like I said, I don't know where else he goes. I mean, if the Chargers don't open, I'm sure he is salivating over Justin Hebert. I say Hebert. His name is Herbert. But I'm from the South. So
that's right. You're from the South. I do respect that.
He would be Hebert if he came to New Orleans.
I know I'm with my people here, so I can say Hebert.
That's it.
But anyway, I mean, I don't know where else you go unless somebody gets blown out in the playoffs, has a good quarterback, and some owner gets fed up and fires the guy.
That makes me point towards Dallas, right?
Well, no. To me, you literally just said the one. I think that's really the only like.
What about Indianapolis?
Oh no, they don't have a quarterback.
Yeah, but I mean, Jim Irsay obviously is going to go do whatever he needs to do to go get the guy. So like that's. I'm not saying it's an attractive destination, but
I just don't think that's the one. I think the other real opportunity or real possibility is a bad performance lost in the playoffs by that Chargers team. I think I've been saying this from the start. I think they're the dark horse in this thing, and I think they're the other possibility. But my question to you is I won't ask you who, because obviously we don't know and it's really early. But Sean's brought up the scenario of being ready to coach this year or next year, which to me sounds like you're ready to coach like
today.
This year coming, right? Do you think he's on the sideline coaching this year coming, or do you think it's going to take another year for him to be there?
I think it's next year. Next football season, he's there. He's laying the foundation. I mean, Sean doesn't seem like a guy that wants to wait around another year. I mean, he really did take a media job. I know he had a media job, but he hasn't been on that much. He's not around. It doesn't seem like he enjoys that much. I mean, this guy's a junkie, and in the best way for football people. So I don't think he's going to sit around another year.
Well, I can't see it. That's my next question is, I don't know. I'm sure there's a handful of people that know the actual reason, and it could just be as simple as he was exhausted. He had to go through 2 very strenuous years with COVID, and then last year having to go through 4 quarterbacks, and he just kind of needed a reset from football and just had to get away. But do you feel like that is the actual reason, or do you think that there are some underlying things that were going on that made him say, I need to take a step back, I need to remove myself from the New Orleans
in
Saints?
particular? Yeah.
I think he was mostly telling the truth there. I can see that he's been here a long time. He was, through all the ups and downs. He probably looked at the outlook last year and said, I don't know, man. And then this year happens, and the NFC South is garbage. Mm-hmm. He sees, let me get a quarterback in New Orleans, and I'm making the playoffs as maybe a 2 or 3 seed at worst next year. I mean, that changes your outlook a lot because
he's got Chris Olave, he's got weapons now on the outside.
You just feel bad for Dennis Allen, who feels like a dead man walking when he's in playoff contention. But I don't know. That's the game, right?
Yeah. So you brought up Dennis Allen. How do they navigate that? If Drew calls who? I mean, if Drew. Shit, maybe he brings.
Wait, who?
Maybe he brings back Drew as a quarterback coach.
That shoulder's in the cemetery.
If Sean calls Gail Benson and says, "Hey, I want to come back. I want to coach. If you will have me, I want to come back to New Orleans." How do they navigate that situation? Obviously, if Sean says he's coming back, you have to give him the opportunity to be the head coach, and you have to remove Dennis Allen from that position. But it's just a very unfortunate situation, and he's very well liked, a very nice guy, and people like being around him. But how do you navigate that without looking like an asshole?
I don't think you come out of it not looking like an asshole. I mean, unless you give him the defensive coordinator job back, which
that's what I was going to bring up.
He take that. But if you saw the report this week that is clearly, put into motion by Payton's side, that he already had Vic Fangio, who is not coaching this year, but is arguably the best defensive coordinator in the NFL. He already has him lined up to be on his staff wherever. So if you already have a defensive coordinator lined up and you want to come back to the Saints, I mean, it's honestly more brutal to a guy that really helped Payton out a lot, over these last however many years he's been defensive coordinator, 5 or 6. I mean, those defenses have been really good under Dennis Allen, and he finally gets a head coaching job. And now you can just say the team hasn't been that great this year. I mean, they didn't get a quarterback. The offense has been largely trash. And it didn't work out, man. This is the NFL. If we win 2 more games, they say NFC South is ours, and you fail to do that. And so sorry. And we also have one of the best coaches in NFL history wanting to come back to where he was great. It's pretty simple, but brutal.
So, same topic. I'm gonna go off the beaten trail a little bit here and kind of jump at you from out of left field. I know you're not gonna see this one coming when I hit you with it.
I'm not telling you.
When we speak about Sean, obviously, this is linked to Tom Brady right now. When you think about Tom Brady, is there another man outside of Jameis Winston that could possibly hate Tom Brady more in this world? I mean, he's basically taking 2 jobs from him. If this really happens, is he looking at this saying, look at this ghost coming back at me again?
He probably. The thing is that Jameis, from what I gathered, he has been out for a while. The fact that they chose to stick with Dalton, and it's splitting hairs to say who was better. I think that Dalton was better, or has been better, but man, both have not been great.
Right.
It's not great on either side.
Well, one of them had a broken back too.
Pain.
He did, but he was healthy, and they chose to not even try.
So
him
they
again.
say. So they say.
Oh, you don't believe that?
I mean, broken backs don't get healed in 2 weeks, so I'm not sure he was that healthy.
That's true. They were like, he played with it, he's fine, but he has broken bones in his back.
Right. But yeah, that's another story here.
It's like the Mike Tyson. I broke my back.
Spinal.
I mean, poor Jameis, but he's going to get another shot somewhere. I mean, Zach Wilson was our quarterback this year.
Right.
Yeah. But he was also rookie and,
big deal.
They needed to give him some time, but obviously that didn't work.
But when you continue to go down the Sean Payton path, as we kind of have so far, wouldn't you think that there is an avenue where it is like there's more to this than we think? Like, are we just misreading it because we're too close to it? Is it almost a scenario where if you're on the outside looking in, it's like, why wouldn't he go back? And I think it points to a situation where Dennis Allen will never be a head coach again. He's 0 for 2, like he failed 2 times in a row. Why would he not be able to say, like you say, you have to be an asshole? Just say, hey, step back and be defensive coordinator.
Yeah, because
he
has Vic. He has the.
Yeah, I know he has the Fangio idea, but if it works out to where it is in New Orleans, like would Dennis Allen be on the table?
I think absolutely. It's just up to where Dennis Allen wants it. Or if Sean brings in Fangio and Dennis Allen wants a defensive coordinator job and he says no thanks, that will be brutal and awful. And I mean, I don't know though, but like as a Saints fan, wouldn't you be like, that sounds good to me actually? Like, sorry, Dennis, good luck.
Yeah, I mean, that's not the problem, but that's what you get with sports, right? Like, it's about winning, and it's about putting together the best staff, right? Just because you like a guy doesn't mean he's the best job. Even though he's done really well for you, maybe there's a guy that's better. I don't know.
Well, and New Orleans is so ingrained in the culture in which they've built that it almost feels like you would be doing something wrong to Dennis Allen. But if you can bring in somebody else and, like, there is an avenue where Sean Payton probably feels like he has to clean house a little bit and get him out of there just to not have almost two voices in the room that were head coaches. But when you continue down that path, Sean Payton and Tom Brady have been almost too aligned for some time. Like, they wanted to go to Miami together. Like, these stories are real. Like, there's a lot of smoke behind what happened in Miami and how it almost got, like, they got caught tampering, pretty much. That's what it feels
did. They
like.
got fined.
They did.
They got fined.
They actually did.
Yeah. And so there's obviously an avenue in which both want to be together. Do you feel like that's real as well? Like, wherever Sean Payton goes, he gets Tom Brady?
I think it's a significant possibility. I don't think it's guaranteed, but there's clearly a lot of mutual respect and admiration between those two, which is impressive for both people. Is Tom Brady going to come back for one more year?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Do we even do you
Right.
even want Tom? Like,
that was my
you
next
do want
question.
Tom, but like, do you want Tom? Like, obviously, if Tom Brady wants to be the quarterback,
You got no
you
better
can't
choice.
say no. But Tom, you're going to get him for 1 year, maybe.
2.
No shot. He's playing.
The man's married to football now. He changed his entire life for this.
I mean, maybe.
He's also 45.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, but he looks great.
I mean, he's been good this year. Man, if you're a Saints fan, don't you want something a little more exciting for the future? I mean, if you get Tom Brady in with Sean Payton,
Lamar Jackson.
We win it all next year. Lamar Jackson there, yes. But if Tom Brady comes next year, it is you have to win it all this year or it's a failure.
And you have to get a quarterback of the future behind him. You have to have somebody to be his backup or his third string guy to where they're learning from him that you believe is going to be the guy. Do you agree?
But how do they get him?
Right.
If the Saints are bringing Peyton back, they still don't have a first-round pick. So either they have to unload somebody on this team that is talented, whether that's Cam Jordan, Alvin Kamara, something like that, to get some draft capital, or you find a third-round quarterback that you really love and you just hit on it, which is hard to do.
But it's also hard to spend that draft capital on a third-round pick on a guy who you know is not going to play on a championship win-now team, too.
Absolutely.
So, that's the other side of it, too. To spend that kind of a pick on someone who you know is not going to play this year is tough.
Yep. Lloyd, you got one?
You're right. And
Go ahead.
yeah.
No, finish. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I mean, it's just it's hard because – and then to get that first-round draft pick, who are you giving up? I mean, you're making your team worse in the short term to get this future quarterback. to play behind a win now quarterback. Hey, I mean, those guys that front office is arguably the best in the NFL at making things work, but I just don't see it right now.
Kick the shit out that can. It's all the way down the road.
That can is smushed.
But I got a two-parter for you. One would be, do you think Aaron Rodgers would be in play with the Sean Payton? And if you want to go the other way with Sean Payton and Tom Brady, why wouldn't the Bucs hire him?
Great question on the second one. Let me pause on that.
He ain't going to the Bucs, Coach.
I think that Rodgers would be in play with that contract. I don't have it in front of me. The contract he just signed will be tough to move, and I mean, maybe he could force his way. I just don't see how Green Bay lets that happen. And after the whole rigmarole last offseason, I really don't see him leaving either.
Yeah,
and they're playing really well. They're playing really well right now, so I don't think he'd leave.
I think they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, they're rolling. But what do you think about the second? What about the second end of Sean Payton going to the Bucs? I mean, why would they not get rid? Obviously, Tom Brady's not happy. Why would they not get rid of?
Yeah.
Who's my guy? Who's coaching there?
Todd Bowles.
Todd Bowles.
Yeah, it does. It felt like Tom Brady forced. Who's my other guy? Bruce Arians out. Sorry.
Sports show.
It feels like Tom Brady forced out Arians to be able to kind of run the team himself, but it hasn't worked out because he's frustrated over there. So that's why it feels like the marriage between Sean Payton and Tom Brady makes sense. But why would they just not get together in Tampa Bay?
I mean, I guess they could. That would imagine Saints fans' feelings when that happens, if it happens. But
the team's not set up. The team's not set up for the future there. Set up for right now.
Tom's out of Tampa.
Like
that offensive
those
side
guys,
of the ball is cooked.
I believe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Who knows?
I'm with that. I was going to say I'm more fascinated to see if Derek Carr's gone, what does Devontae Adams do? Like, does Green Bay try to get him back somehow, even though he signed that monster deal?
Wouldn't that be outrageous?
Or maybe he comes to the Saints.
What if we do a swap-a-roo with him and Mike Thomas and something else?
Mike Tomlin. Oh.
No, Thomas. Mike Thomas.
Michael Thomas.
Oh, Mike Thomas.
Michael Tomlin. Mike Tomlin ain't going nowhere.
You win it again?
I was about to say, I hadn't thought about that.
You shouldn't.
Yeah.
That's very nice of you.
But when you talk about the Mike,
I can see something with that.
When you talk about the Mike Thomas front, he's the one that's liking tweets on the internet about Sean Payton coming back, and we all thought, with Tom and Sean Payton, we all thought that was the rift in the relationship when you saw Michael Thomas come back, and that's why I think some people do have some varying questions about how Jameis worked with his back and the health. And how the injury staff kind of took care of their team, because Michael Thomas was very public with how he thought he was handled. But then you go and see that he's liking tweets about Sean Payton coming in. So it feels like there's more, almost more smoke to this than it feels like.
Mike is messy, huh? Like, this dude does
not
shy away from saying his piece. I mean, on the other side, if we're talking about valuable pieces that the Saints could get draft capital for, Mike Thomas feels like that guy who is somebody could take a flyer on him and be like, we still think he is that number one, best wide receiver in the NFL. And he hasn't played for the Saints in the last 2 years outside of 3 games this year and nothing last year. So the Saints will probably be content to move on from him, get what they can. But the way NFL trades are these days, I mean, I could see that getting maybe a 3rd round pick. A 2nd round pick would be high. I don't think he gets a 1st. And then
what if they just
he's going to be really good.
What if they just trade him straight up for Devontae and just switch contracts? Because Michael Thomas on a cheaper contract has more years into his contract and give Devontae the other side.
I don't know if that's going to happen, Mike.
Yeah, I don't think so either. All right, I know my last question for me, my last football question for you actually is, and to kind of put a bow on the Sean Payton conversation. Do you feel like this conversation? I mean, this decision is going to be made immediately following the season, or is this something that's going to drag out a little bit into the offseason? And you would imagine it's this decision is made before the draft, right?
Yes, has to be. I mean, I could see it dragging on through the playoffs and maybe even a little after the Super Bowl, but it can't be longer either way because. I mean, Peyton ran the show before, and he's going to run it again where he's going to pick out people he wants, especially with a quarterback. And if he's bringing a quarterback in, you can't let that linger. You can't let that go. So it should be pretty soon. I mean, we'll see if the Saints somehow make the playoffs. That would be even more awkward if they have to get rid of Dennis Allen after
I would hope so.
All
I'm worried about is they got my combined over/under with LSU Saints by winning last week, and I got it, so I'm good. So it's the only thing that matters. Before I let you go, your prediction on what do you think is going to happen? Do you what's your gut feeling? What's your gut telling you?
I'm going to say that Sean comes back and they trade for Derek Carr, like I said before.
All right.
That seems like the most.
I mean,
I'm gonna find if that happens. I'm finding your address. I'm egging your house. I'm just letting you know. We're not letting that happen.
I'll be outside with a beer. All right. You just come in, have a beer. We can talk it out.
You covered the Phillies for a little while. How awesome was it to see them get to the World Series and finally bring postseason baseball back to Philadelphia?
It was really cool. You know, I had some cursed timing there where I graduated LSU in 2012 and I immediately got the job covering the Phillies. So it was they had won 5 straight and at least
it was your fault. They
went straight down when I got there. And so, but I was covering Rollins, Howard, Utley, and they were still good, but it just wasn't working. And I saw like the downfall, and Roy Halladay was there, and Cliff Lee was there. It was really crazy to see. They had moments where that park was rocking. Like one of my first games I covered, Utley came back from his injury, and the first pitch he saw, he hit out right center field, and the place exploded. And I was like, okay, like this is not the Daily Reveille anymore, and the base of the Hodges Hall. This is really cool, but it was really cool to see that because I still keep up with a lot of people in Philly. I love Philly. It's a great town. It's one of my favorite cities in the country, and like to see all the fun that they had was really cool. I mean, I thought they were going to pull it off, but the Astros are
they're setting themselves up next year. I mean, they're still spinning in free agency. So when the Phillies are good, and the Yankees are good, and the Red Sox are good, and Dodgers are good, and all these teams are good, it's good for baseball because it gives you it brings the Cubs, it just brings around the entire country.
The Mets are spending the GDP of like an entire continent.
Which you know what? And listen, I didn't want to get into. We're not going to really get in depth in this, but I respect that. Like he is shaking up.
I love it.
He needs it. The baseball needs it. The owners need it. The owners basically announced that they were colluding without saying that they were colluding, and I'm glad that we have a guy who says, fuck it, I'm just going to go out and do what I need to do, and I'm going to change everything, and that's what baseball needed.
I'm totally with you, Mikey. And like these owners are so incredibly wealthy, and people say, oh, they don't want to spend all this money. It's like they have the money.
Right.
They all have the money. And Steve Cohen says, well, I don't care. Let's win a World Series. Like, I have the money. Let's do it. And let's make that the market value instead of penny pitching and whatever the Rays payroll is going to be this year, or insert other Pirates, whoever.
So and it's hard for me to talk about the Rays because the Rays are successful doing what they do, but like the A's or the Pirates really are like the highlight. Like, hey, you don't spend any money and you don't develop anybody, so you stink. And when you do develop someone, you trade them out of the way anyway, right? And here's what happened: you spend all this money. And hey, we're going to spend payroll of this. Our payroll is going to be over the luxury tax. And you go ahead and you win the World Series. You know what that does for you? You make more money because you win the World Series and you have more games and you have ticket sales and you have attention. And that's crazy how that works. You have more success on the field. You make more money off the field. But it's just hard, so they don't want anyone else to do it.
Preaching the choir.
Yep. All right. That's all. I'm off my soapbox. We didn't bring you in to talk baseball. But you have a lot of knowledge in the baseball world, so we'll have you back on during baseball season for sure, and we can talk.
Please do.
We can talk ball for sure. Chris, man, I appreciate you coming on. You're awesome.
Yeah,
you understand the show. And, anytime, man. Anytime you want to come back on, you want to chat it up with us, please do. And then if I'll make sure Jared doesn't find your house if that happens.
No, I'm finding it. I'm finding it. If it happens.
I mean, I'll just text it to you.
Listen, if it doesn't happen, just be on that porch. I might come have a beer with you.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
There you go.
If you want, I don't know if this helps your work or not, but breaking news: Kayshawn is just declared for the NFL draft. So
wow.
You're welcome for that.
What?
Wait, he really did?
Mm-hmm. He just put it on Twitter. After careful thoughts and consideration, I'll be
okay. I take back everything I said at the beginning of the show.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Has somebody ever been messier with their just college career?
Oh man, I read somewhere that it was some violation of team rules, which I don't know exactly what that is, but
I was just under the assumption that he didn't pass, and so he was going to be academically ineligible.
Keyshawn, he still has the tweet up underneath it of him saying, "I want to come back." You got to delete that and put the new one out. He needs help.
That's wild.
Wow.
That is wild.
Wild.
Well, you guys, oh my gosh.
We have a lot of we have a lot more to talk about. Thank you, Keyshawn. Make our show a lot easier today. Wow. Well, let us digest that and let us figure out how we want to move on from that conversation.
Yeah.
But Chris, I appreciate you, man. Again, we'll have you on during baseball season, and you're awesome. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right.